Hello, everybody. My name is Jenna Barron. I'm news editor of SD Times. I'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of the SD Times live microwebinar series with the secrets management provider Doppler. In today's live stream, we'll be talking about the future of secrets management. Joining me is Brian Vallelunga, CEO of Doppler, and Hamza Sharif, Head of Solutions Engineering at Doppler. Welcome, Brian and Hamza.
Hey, great to be here.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. I think this will be a very interesting conversation because it's always kind of interesting to speculate on the future in tech since this is the area that moves so fast. So, yeah, for both of you, how do you see the future of secrets management at this moment in time?
Well, Hamza, I think there's like three areas that really come to mind for me. Compliance bodies, which we can get into, and really being well-rounded around secrets management, identity-based auth, and I think there could be something around AI too that we can dive into. You want to start with compliance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to Brian's point, secrets management has been an industry that's been growing over the past few years. And compliance specifically is not something that's quite caught on to secrets management and best practices. So I think over the next couple of years, with this entire movement, the shift left in the industry, with everyone moving towards a microservices architecture, people are beginning to realize the importance and necessity really of secrets management. And I think we're going to continue to see that these larger compliance bodies have more specific requirements around secrets management.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really comes down to NIST. Like it seems like all the compliance bodies kind of build off of the base foundation of NIST. And if NIST is, for anyone on the call, is one of the core compliance bodies for basically saying these are the things that you need to do to stay secure as a company. And right now there's a big gap in it, which is secrets management. Again, the keys to the digital kingdoms that unlock all the doors that have all the data behind it. And so I think companies need a little bit of help knowing what are the best things to do to keep their secrets secure. And if NIST makes that update to add secrets management, and I think it would do the entire industry a whole world of good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure the CISOs around the world probably have a lot of thoughts about this when they get specific requirements pushed on them. But yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the case.
I'm curious around identity-based auth. It seems like this is something that's growing a little bit more in the industry. Hamza, do you have any hot takes here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a hot take, but I think across the board, everyone knows that secret zero is a problem that's been really hard to solve for most organizations, right? Like we've had secrets management tools around for a while, but usually in order to get access to a secrets management tool, you need to have some sort of token. So it's you need a password to get access to all your passwords. And this is what the problem of secret zero is. Like, how do you secure that, right? Like, do you put that in another vault? And then you have this rabbit hole you keep down and going down. And so identity-based authentication is something that's become increasingly more popular, where you use an existing trusted identity, that you're already aware of. Like you have identity providers, or you're using an Amazon identity that's already trusted to get access to these services. And so that's definitely a big push for the industry because you want to limit the amount of potential weak points for your network, right? And the more tokens or the more secrets that you have, the more the threat is. So identity-based authentication is definitely something we're talking a lot more about. And I think we're going to see that across the board, not just for secrets management, but for any kind of communication across networks.
So let's just make it a little bit more practical for the people on the listening in. How would one authenticate? Like, what does authentication look like in this? Is it like because you're in AWS, you automatically have access to a secrets manager, and then from there something else happens? Like, what does it look practically?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different options based on what specific identity you're choosing to trust. In the case of AWS, let's say you have an AWS EC2 instance, that's probably going to be assigned or associated with a specific IAM role within AWS. So you're using that existing role that has specific permissions mapped to it in order to get access to another service. That service could be Doppler, for example. But essentially any service you want to identify with or you want to authenticate to, instead of providing like a password or a token, you're using a pre-existing identity that you've already assigned certain permissions to. So it's something you're very well aware of. Obviously, you have to go and set it up initially, but once that's set up, you don't need to have an additional token every time you're actually authenticating.
And what's the risk of having this like one token there? Like, why is secret zero like a really big problem?
Yeah, so I think the biggest issue is whenever you have any sort of token, you have to store that token somewhere, right? And when you're storing that token, you always have the risk of some sort of leak and breach. Unfortunately, the weakest chain in any sort of this security network is humans, right? And that's what happens. You're not having hackers come in and like break the cryptography on any of these secrets. You have a case where someone has a token that gets exposed, right? Like it's in a repository somewhere. They sent it over a Slack or email to someone. So whenever you have these tokens, you have a major risk of having them exposed. And then that one token can potentially grant access to your entire organization's cloud account to a hacker or anything like that, right? So that's the big problem with having these secrets or tokens.
It sounds like one other thing, like it sounds very similar to something else we've talked about internally around having like this secrets network, or sorry, identity network. And the idea being that like you're authenticated from AWS into a secrets manager like Doppler, so you don't need that zero secret. But then you still have API keys for like Stripe or your database or whatever it may be. And if we can get rid of those secrets, that'd be really powerful as well. And so this idea of like an identity-based network would be something where just by the fact that you're in an EC2 instance that has an identity, you're now automatically authenticated to Doppler, and Doppler would be authenticated to some service like Stripe or Twilio or a database. So you don't actually need a secret anywhere throughout that chain. I think that's really where the industry needs to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's the next step where I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but secrets rotation has been like a compliance requirement across a lot of these different compliance bodies. And what you're mentioning is this move towards a secretless kind of world where you either have ephemeral credentials or you have dynamic secrets where you only technically need the secret for the duration of whatever authentication requests you're trying to make, and you don't ever need to store these secrets anywhere. If you want to make a request, you automatically get that secret for the duration of the request, like that Stripe key or any other API key for that matter. So I think that kind of dynamic ephemeral world or secretless world is definitely where the industry should be thinking of going.
Yeah, and I think we'll see it over time. All right. Last topic or on this is AI. Hamza, give us a hot take of where you think AI is going to really impact secrets management.
Yeah, so obviously this is what everyone in the world is talking about these days. I think obviously like all industries, secrets management is definitely going to be affected by AI, by machine learning. And I think there's two potential options, right? One world which might be a little more ambitious is with the proliferation of artificial intelligence systems, maybe secrets management just isn't a problem anymore, right? We're just having all this machine-to-machine communication. And we don't need these additional services because we remove the humans for that error in between the loop, right? And then AI just takes care of everything for us. I think the more realistic scenario is as we still have humans in the loop, artificial intelligence is probably going to enhance secrets management by giving us some more capabilities to actually detect and respond to threats. So something that people usually talk about is anomaly detection. So identifying unusual patterns across the network and potentially identifying security breaches or doing some sort of predictive analytics, forecasting vulnerabilities, just to give organizations that one step up on their security. And then, of course, having automated responses to potential threats. So just giving you those enhanced capabilities to stuff you can already do now, but is extremely manual. And that's where you have that limitation where you need to know there's a problem in order to figure out how to remediate it. And I think that's where machine learning and artificial intelligence can play a big role.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the topics we had today for the future of secrets management.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this space over the next couple of years and see how these predictions play out. But yeah, we're just out of time here today. So everyone, remember you can watch a replay of this video on SD Times if you want to rewatch it. Again, this was Brian Vallelunga, CEO of Doppler, and Hamza Sharif, Head of Solutions Engineering at Doppler. And if you want to learn more about them, visit doppler.com. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you.